Hello and welcome to another episode of the WERF League. I am JT. You can find me on Twitter, JT underscore the ginger. And this is Sean. You can find him on Twitter at Sean underscore Beatty. How are we doing, Sean?
Pretty good. How about you?
Not too bad. Um, got any drafts left? I know we got one in our home league, but any other drafts lined up before
Oh,
the
that's it. I think 3 leagues is plenty for me. I know some people are psychos and have double digits, but three is plenty for me.
right? I saw Alex Fast tweet out, I think it was late last week, asking how many leagues people are in that are daily moves, because I know that's like a big, you could be in a million best ball
Yeah,
leagues, you
it's like
draft
fantasy,
and then
yeah, or
you're
like
done.
weekly fantasy football leagues. Yeah, that's easy.
So I liked his, I liked it, but I also commented, I was like, it'd be pretty sweet if you asked it like also a different way. What percentage of your total leagues are daily moves? Because those do take up the most time. And I guess that's just what I was used to. That's what we started way back when. And it was like, now that the standard is, I think NFBC is pretty much kind of like the standard twice a week roster moves. I think the batters are the twice a week. I think the pitchers are once a week. But any league whatsoever, just know your league settings. And we're going to talk about a little bit of the kind of league strategy here in tonight's episode. Kind of stumbled on some stats projections and relating them to percentiles, and I thought it was just kind of a fun exercise to know what your league settings and what stats you're trying to accumulate, whether it's head to head or rotisserie or whatever. Know the rules of the game. So with that being said, I'm going to pull up screen share here, this fancy color coded Excel spreadsheet. And so in this example, these stat columns happen to be for the most part, besides wins, the stat categories in Sean and I's home league that we were drafting this weekend. And so I was doing a little player deep dive in, seeing values and where they're falling in terms of ADP and rounds. So just before we dive into that, I'll just kind of explain the spreadsheet. Well, so over here I have ATC projections. Shout out RL Cohen.
Yep.
So I downloaded those and I mashed them into one Excel spreadsheet page. And then I did a separate page, and it's taking the max or min for pitcher stat ratios in terms of each category for our league. So in this one, max home runs, Mike Trout, I believe it was projected for 44 home runs. And these are stats projections as of early March. So they've changed since then. But this is just still a good example. So each category here is just taking the max from my player stats, and essentially what I'm doing is taking each player stat from over here and dividing it by the max available for like home runs for this example. So I got Acuna, he's on the 88.6 percentile out of, so 39 out of 44 home runs as your max available stat category. So when you put them all out that way and divide them by the best available outcome projected, and then you add them all up and divide by, in this case we have 6 batting categories, 6 pitching categories. I was coming up with like a percentile of, right now, in terms of Ronald Acuna Jr., he is accumulated the most percentage of each category. He's giving you it's really the stolen base bump here compared to the other top. So I just found it really interesting, and what really popped out was the first like 15 or so names are pretty close to the top 15 names you're seeing in ADP. I mean, Bryce Harper sneaks in there, and Bellinger, we know, sliding with shoulder question marks. But yeah, I was just gonna kind of deep dive. So what's your first take on this, Sean?
Well, my first take after looking at that, you're totally right. But my eye is immediately drawn to Suarez at 17 being that high in all the categories. again, and like a Springer as well, Pete Alonso as well, being that high up. I noticed again the stolen bases. We kind of talked about this last week. This is turning into the stolen base podcast. A lot of the projections are very generous with their stolen bases. I feel like me and you, JT, did a home league or at ESPN, and my first two picks were Bryce Harper and Aaron Judge. Neither of them are really speedsters, but at least Bryce Harper is going to get something. But I was projected, I think it was you or somebody else had 4 players, and there were some pretty decent players, and I was projected for more stolen bases than several people. I was like 5th in the league, and I was just like, that drew my eye to like the absolute, I don't want to say ridiculousness, but unrealistic expectations for stolen bases from some people. So everything else had a really nice, like, this is great, but I even think the stolen bases could even help the stolen bases people more than they'll help Acuna even more than this. And I think they'll hurt maybe not Mike Trout, but somebody else like a Suarez more, because is he really going to get 5% of Mondesi's stolen bases on the year? I'm going to probably say no. So I think like these type of people, it really helps actually them. I don't think it's obviously going to bump him, like he's 17th right here. I don't think it like the extra bump in stolen bases. I think he should be like 21 in this thing if it was realistic, but still it helps these like slower guys in this projection. But yeah, it gets a really good idea of who fills out your stat sheet actually. And I think it's funny that the 3 pitchers are they're always next to each other in like every draft I see, and they're next to each other here too. So that's great.
And that's what really drew my attention, was like, I'm just messing around. I'm seeing, because it made me think of like, how would someone do their own rankings if they had some like obscure stats? Like, and I know in our league, I mean, you're looking at, some people might think that's strikeouts to breaking ball ratio, but it's actually strikeouts to walk. That's the inside joke.
You're taking a shot at our buddy, man. Okay, all right.
Shots fired. He gets married in like 2 weeks, so just he's on my mind. But essentially, I was like, oh wow, like this is really interesting. Maybe I have something here. So what I realized was my player stats is kind of in case I mess this up. So what really pulling it is focused on, because I have the stats way out here on the border, and what I actually set this up, so I might use this in our actual draft. As soon as Ronald Acuna goes, I'm deleting, and then like, so say the first, you're going to start seeing these numbers change. It's going to blow your socks off. Watch all these pitchers go. I don't know if anyone else would go up there. Trey Turner. That might be like kind of the first 8 or 9 players that would go potentially. So then if I'm drafting like 10, I just refresh this, right? And now based on the maximum available, Trout's gone. So now the best available outcome in home runs is 42 left over. So as I delete these players, I'm getting new percentiles as the draft progresses. So if I can stay on top of this, it might really kind of benefit.
Yeah, so, Bryce Harper jumped up real high, 100% in a lot of things.
Right, in terms of remaining players available after I took about 9 or so away. So I thought that was
Joey Gallo and Hoskins. Oh man, sorry, I haven't seen like below this, and I just saw those 2 guys sneak up there. Oh my gosh.
So I'll refresh and we'll just have the whole player pool. But I realized what I had messed around a little more so than I had originally remembered, because it's been a few weeks since I touched this one. But yeah, so I mean, we can keep going, but ultimately I thought it was a really good way to like strategize in terms of every website is different. Yahoo, Fantrax, ESPN, CBS, they all have different rankings. And when you get into those draft rooms, they have usually like some type of consensus expert ranking, and then like what the ADP's been going off of their previous drafts that's been happening that year for their platform. But sometimes that just has a standard 5x5 in mind, or at least with Fantrax, it's super dynasty heavy, so ADP might be a little skewed. So I always thought it was interesting to kind of, I guess,
Well,
Compare
it's
and
nice.
contrast, really. I mean,
I think it just helped me right here. I was looking at some projections and things like that. I think it helps people remove, and I think that's the largest part of what we kind of talked about last week too, is removing personal bias a lot of the time. I mean, obviously these are based on like projections as well, but I looked up because I saw CJ Crone a little bit, and I was looking at him, and his projected batting averages 275. I'm always like, oh well, he doesn't bat that well. But looking at it and his projections and his advanced metrics and things like that, 275 in Colorado, where that's notorious for helping batting average. People think it's always like helping home runs, but the ballpark in the outfield is so big, it actually leads to a lot of doubles as well. Balls that just find area, especially for fly ball guys. It's not ridiculous 275, and it helps me because I would have put him way lower, but the projections kind of took out that. It took out the personal bias of like looking at it, and it was like, look, Sean, you understand what Colorado does for batting average, and he actually hasn't been as bad in these other stadiums or small sample size. Remove that bias, and again, like something like this will tell me like this is what he's projected for in this new ballpark, and it would have helped me if I in our league, in our main league, 15-team league, I delved into my personal bias too much and erased a bunch of players off the board in my
yeah.
head. So
Yeah, and I think he's 30, so obviously
yeah,
he's going to play as much as he can. The Rockies hate people who starting age begins with the
yeah,
2.
yeah, they're just done with them.
Yeah, they're ageists out there. They're a little too high up in the mile.
Kind of reverse ages for baseball, actually, which is interesting.
You can't over exaggerate experience.
Can you build a team around only veteran presence? Like and
We're really
very
going
limited
for locker room war.
Yeah, very limited actual talent, but just such a great clubhouse. Like that locker room war is off the charts.
We'll call it Lear, like locker room experience above replacement.
Oh, I like it. I like
And
it.
it'll just be completely based on different stats. Like, oh, look, he brought his own shower caddy. He's got locker room experience.
See, now I don't see my personal bias. Like, it really is hard here, though, because it says Malik Smith is going to be second in baseball in stolen bases. And I have a hard time believing that just due to playing time.
Yeah. And the only thing against, like, when you're comparing these, would be, yeah, an injury or playing time. And obviously, I wanted to preface this was, based on stats 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it might have at the time still been considering a DH, which I still don't know. They still might pull that rug out from under us.
But most of these guys up here, the big guys, obviously are going to hit you regardless. Like Pete Alonso and Ozuna, Atlanta's not going to sign Ozuna and then not play him, regardless of DH or not.
Yeah,
they're going to deal with the outfield.
You're leaning more injury up here, and as we keep scrolling, we'll do playing time, considerations, and that'd be another thing. I mean, definitely Fangraphs. Can't talk about those guys enough. I was trying to support them. I got a shirt of them over the summer. But Fangraphs, they have so many different ways of not only just researching a player, but their projections tab in terms of the zips and there's a 600. So like if you gave everyone 600 at bats, you could see the discrepancy in terms of just like overall skill. And there's a lot of ways to look at players and compare and contrast them. So and this one just happened to be league specific to ours, but I thought it was a good exercise. Some of the ones I was highlighting out was their high ADP compared to this high, I was calling it PER, although I feel like I'm stealing from basketball now in terms of PER, but essentially, I mean, I don't know how this would benefit anyone else. I mean, if you're in our home league, you might be like, oh, interesting. There's some names that I might be willing to draft or whatever. So that's why I was reluctant to share this last week. But like I said, it's 3 weeks old, so everything has completely changed. And Lance Lynn is the number one pitcher now in terms of I just made that up because he's going to throw 250 innings.
There you go. There you go. Lance Lynn. Book it right now. JT called it. Lance Lynn, huh? Wow. I guess. Well, I mean, I guess another factor in this too is the part that's overlooked is people look at the pitcher and you go down. If you look at Lance Lynn, people are going to be like, oh, he's Kershaw or something's better. A lot of fantasy, especially with pitchers, is just innings. A lot of it's just
Mm-hmm.
getting innings, and guys who eat innings, especially this year after a COVID shortened season, guys who eat innings are not going to be minimized in any way. Why the big three are going to be safe? Just anybody you trust to get those innings, regardless if they're great or not, they're going to fill out some stat sheets. And that's why I think someone like Lynn's going to get overlooked.
Right here, like I'm seeing LeMahieu at 56%. It's kind of low. I mean, obviously, does he not have full playing time?
I think his issue is an OBP league kind of hurts him because he is a stalwart in batting average, but he doesn't for the trade-off of OBP. He's the best batting average guy because he gets so many at bats and hits for his high average. It's going to help out your overall like all of your batters combined, your hits. He's gonna have such a high percentage of your at bats on your team, and it's such a high
Right.
batting average. His on base percentage isn't going to. I mean, you're going to get a Soto to be the number one guy there. So he loses value in his most important category is why it drags him down. He's good, but
Right.
just not as good as he is in an average. Like he'd be so much higher on this list. I would like to see on like a batting average list.
It's true. I mean, yeah, I mean that would be the key is whatever your league does for stats, definitely be in tune with that. The difference between a average and OBP is great. Like we just talked about Gallo just a second ago. If this was an average league,
Yeah.
he'd be down there a ways. But he does get that playing time, especially on that team. And surprisingly, I didn't realize how good of a defender he is.
And again, a walk, a home run, strikeout, or walk, it is great in OBP. It is bad in batting average, because that walk doesn't help you. And Joey Gallo, huge bump up because of that. Huge bump up.
Mm-hmm.
Those big boppers who do the 3 true outcome guys, like a Stanton or even a Judge to a certain point, they're going to get huge bumps in OBP leagues. It's also important to point out this is a win category versus a quality start. So if people are looking at this and wondering what's the deal, it's a win instead of quality start right here.
Yeah, so you're getting the win out there. Haters. Yeah, where if it was true, we'd do quality start for ours and it'd be his big old 0.
He'd be much lower.
Yeah. Which is interesting because in years prior for this league at least, I know those top closers being valuable in terms of ratios, but maybe that's because of our head-to-head aspect.
I think what it actually has been is I think the dip in the elite closer, because what was it 3 years ago? What was his name? God, the Mets guy, old Mara guy. I can't remember his name.
Diaz,
who was so good at his ratios, and then Hader was so good at his ratios. They've kind of normalized, and they were just kind of outliers, I believe. And so that's why they were so high, because their other ratios were so good, it kind of like pulled them up. And there's probably, like you said, like a little bit of market overcorrection, overdrafting. But I think that, Diaz was like, what was he, like 45 of like 46 in saves and had like crazy K per 9. And Hader, like 3 years ago or 2 years ago, when he was coming out of the pen and wasn't really saving every start, was like, what was it, like 15 K per 9, just stupid things like that. It was like, and they're kind of normalizing, and that's why I think they're falling a little bit.
Ooh, Mitch Haniger. Look at that value in terms of his per to ADP ratio.
The more you keep talking about these lists, I like out when people remember the first one. I was predicted to get last in our list, and then now all these things you're showing all my guys up here and talking about all these lists, and like Stan was up there. I'm just like, oh man, I'm believing. Christian Walker, that's my guy too, right there, Arizona, right at the top, top 100 again.
There's Tommy Pham, everyone's guy except for me.
Carlos Correa, my guy.
Everyone should draft him, so you go for that.
Tommy Pham, just let it go, JT.
Everybody can be a fanboy.
Just let it go, man. CJ Crono, right
Interesting
there.
seeing Giolito down here further than your Greinke, Hendricks. But I mean,
I'm
so
glad this list.
what's to his detriment? His K
I'm
to
glad
walk
this list
is
gives you Darvish a
shaky.
lot of like hype because you Darvish is very underrated. I feel like in
Well, I
terms.
think that's his K to
Yeah,
walk bump in
yeah,
terms of
yeah.
slightly, but
But versus a starting pitcher, yeah, like that's
mhm.
yeah, it's giving you Darvish some love. I like that. Kyle Seager. Yeah, okay. Okay, so JT, I'm going to ask you here. We only have one league left. I can ask you like individual player question. Kelly Jansen, like, is he the closer at the end of the year? I'm just tired of him like not being very good and then getting benched when it matters the most, like in the playoffs for the Dodgers. Is he going to be the Dodgers closer all year? I just see him getting worse and worse and worse. And with the state, with how many arms they got back there, I can't imagine they would wait very long.
Yeah, I feel like you could see the shortest leash that you've ever seen, but I feel like at the same time they're set up to win, right? But they just won the World Series, so it's just like this conundrum of are they really putting the pedal to the metal? Would they be
Yeah.
more willing to pace him out, bring in Bruce Starr, um, or I think yeah, they have Kniebel now in the.
They, they,
He's
they have
coming
like
back from
everybody.
injury. Like they're just
Yeah.
getting everyone on the cheap. Trinan's there, right?
Yeah, they got kids in the minors too. They're like they got everybody. Like it's just my issue is like I think you're right. I think how talented they are will be is really not even him. It's going to keep him in the job. Like they're not going to have high leverage situations. This is pertains to fantasy only. They're not going to have high leverage situations in the fantasy season that are going to matter too much because most of the time they're already going to be winning by a bunch, or you get your saves, but they're going to be three runs, and you got to get three outs, and they're going to be up by a lot, or they'll only maybe a guy gave up a run and he's come in just to get one out save or something like that because they're just going to be so good. If it was like a team that's got to scrape together a bunch of wins like the Mariners, I think his leash would be much much shorter. Like you got to convert all the save chances you get, and the strength of this team's talent will keep him in the job. But I still could see him losing this job at some point, just because the talent around him is so. If he gets off to a rough start, because he's looked great in the spring, but if he gets off to a rough start, I, as a manager, wouldn't be hesitant to pull him. But I'm no Dave Roberts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting just to see how this whole marathon of the season after such a short, well, even just to start 2020, spring training, then stop, and then we might come back in May and then stop, and then we're doing what did they call it?
Like not spring break, but like
Yeah,
yeah,
summer.
summer
Yeah.
ball. Yeah,
So, and part of me is
this
like, don't you kind of count all that? I mean, they stayed fairly prepared. I would think I
yeah.
don't remember too many like extremely short outings to begin 2020. So it's like they were fairly ready and able to ramp up. I felt like maybe a little bit more injuries in terms of just like hamstring pulls, like the little things that would like, they're not fully
Yeah.
trying to
I,
they're pace themselves. But I feel like just you throw a bullpen and you're throwing like 20, 30 pitches, like that counts for something, doesn't it? I don't
yeah.
know how much effort you're giving it, but I feel like the more I think about it, it's just like this is their profession, this is their livelihood. I know that maybe just for the month of April they'll have some kid gloves on, but otherwise I would expect a mostly normal
You would
season.
see, I get what you're saying with like it's their profession, but we have enough examples of especially baseball players in the Pacific Northwest. I'm so sorry, Felix, resting on their laurels and not really doing what they should be doing in the offseason or downtime. So I'm not saying any of these guys in particular are, but there is precedent, especially amongst baseball players, to sit on something. So It does make me a little nervous, but you're right. And I got to point out too, Justin Upton here. Holy crap, at 118. I didn't really forget he was playing, but kind of as a joke, forgot he was still playing baseball. But man, I guess stolen bases obviously. Again, what projection is projecting stolen base? Justin Upton to have 7 or almost 8% of the stolen bases Mondesi has, like,
which
4.
equates to
It is
4.
4.
I mean,
I think it's really low on Mondesi's end more than anything, but I think that's really high on Upton's end as well. But
well, 51 seems 51. That, yeah, and maybe like weighting these would be something of interest, but like I don't know if I want to get too complicated with this kind of thought. I think it really brings up just good discussions on players that, ultimately, like your CJ Cron, that are kind of forgotten by the wayside. Maybe like, oh, I'll just kind of watch list them. I would think most leagues are 12-team leagues. Most leagues are somewhere between 24 to 30 roster spots. And so, I mean, based on that math, he'd be on that outside of the fringe watch list free agent player. But obviously, playing time is a huge thing. Definitely seeing in terms of minor league, or spring training, and sending players back to the minors or their exhibition squad, or there's the players that are still remaining have a better shot. And like Andrew Vaughn, there was talk that he might get an extension. That'd be a huge boost for his playing time with the White Sox. So it's Brandon Belt right there, 128. If he's healthy, I know
that's your guy. You talk about him every time. I think you're gonna go after him.
He's just like he's just there, but he's not sexy. He
doesn't cash the
something
checks.
you pursue. He's like
You'd argue he does cash the checks because you just under the radar. He's not that headliner, that showstopper, but he cashes those checks. He wins you championships.
Yeah,
An under the radar value guy.
He's like a dog. He's just old reliable. He's Old Yeller. But one of these days he's gonna get
ends, right?
and then you're just gonna have to take care of him.
Gosh,
I'm sorry.
That's a horrible ending to Brandon Belt.
Oh, close. Albert. Eventually, my
Evan White at 1-4. Wow, 141.
Obviously, the ADP, maybe it's not the most accurate from at the time. I think Alec Baum is definitely being taken in.
He's getting drafted.
The 150 range, probably. I don't know.
The podcast
I haven't
favorite.
even paid attention.
Podcast favorite Dylan Moore right there making an appearance.
Yeah.
I think it's a little low on his stolen bases, honestly. That dude is just gonna go. 144.
Oh, Dylan Moore.
He's just gonna go, man. Like, he's gonna get the opportunities. 23.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that might even be a little low. He's gonna get on base, and he's gonna get. Well, I guess he'll get thrown out a bunch. I guess that's probably close. Yeah. 19 home runs. Oh man, 2020 season. I'll take it from a Rule 5 guy. That was real baseball I injected in there to this fantasy baseball discussion, but my Dylan Moore love has to come out a little bit.
Right.
Salvador Perez, his 4-year deal just got implemented. Patrick Corbin, that's my guy, which I'm very reluctant on. Is that your highlight of no, don't touch right there?
I don't know. Just based on looking at this, there's a lot more batters that if they get more playing time, we don't know what, like right now I've highlighted Castro. I don't know if he has a second base gig in Washington, but just
Frank Mancini, who knows what that guy's going to look like a year after what he dealt with too. Like, that's projecting. I mean, a lot of people are projecting a full season, but I can't imagine that guy plays a full season after that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's got to get more off days. But Patrick Corbin, you want to trade for him in either league? Really, I doubled down on him. Let's do it.
I've been okay with Patrick Corbin, but at the same time, when you look at his stats, it's almost Bauer-esque. I mean, just kind of like a one or two good years, and obviously not the peak Bauer has had of a Cy, but you can check under my bill. I don't have
Oh gosh.
any foreign substances. Oh, by the way, got my World Baseball Classic hat. I don't know. I don't think it's happening this year, but the Olympics should be, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
they've got baseball.
as of right now, it's planned. Who knows? Like, getting all those
So
countries together, but that's a whole different issue.
yeah.
Door. Man, so you're only at like 160, and you got a lot of guys in like the 300s, the 500s, the 200s here. Salvador Perez
Mm-hmm.
drops a lot, but that's kind of like fantasy. That's nothing fantasy wise. Is that surprising? Good, Brian
So
Hayes. What do you
yeah,
think of him?
I think he's the best player. He's like that meme that he's the shiniest gold piece of garbage in the pile of garbage.
I asked that because there's three Pittsburgh guys here on this chart right here, like right next to each other. Brian Reynolds right after him,
Oh
and
yeah.
yeah, like so.
Don't worry about that guy.
You,
Let's look at
so you're way more in on Brian Hayes. Okay, it's good because I am
yeah.
too. But
Yeah.
obviously, I kind of have a hard time trusting anything projection wise on that guy with such a small sample size.
Mm-hmm.
That's I think like that's darts against the dartboard at that point.
I feel like
It has
runs
to
and
be.
ribbies are probably close. I mean, if he
It's
plays enough at the top of the order, he might stumble into 75 plus in each. But I could definitely see him going 2010
yeah.
or
I
2015, trying
I
to
think
like
it's
physically just generate, like be the team, put him on his back. I know he's young, but I think he's going to start the season with them. I mean, he looks
oh
great at
yeah, he
third.
has to. I think he's either a lot better or a lot worse than these projections because these projections are much like the streamer and the zips, other than like the Dodgers, last year, but they're like every team's gonna get within 90 and 75 wins, and like they're all just like
Mm-hmm.
middle of the line, no like outliers except for the Dodgers, of course. But like, so I think like a guy like that, a young guy, will either really go well or really go bad. Don't you highlight Zach Gallen like that and don't pretend like I didn't see it.
Wow. I mean, we've gone through a few pitchers.
172.
His K to walk is
Again, we talked
sub
about this.
50.
We
I
talked
guess
about
there's a
this.
lot of.
He's the guy who just gets people out. Like it doesn't make sense. It just happens. Like he just gets guys out.
Are you up to date on Gallon news?
No, what happened? Oh gosh.
He strained something in his arm, but while he was doing his batting practice, because he's an NL pitcher. But I thought it was this. I thought it was the same throw as his throwing arm,
Gosh. Now I'm gonna like you
but
just keep talking and
but the
I'm
yeah, you
gonna
need.
look.
Sorry, I didn't mean to break this
Middle
to
of the
you while we're
podcast,
recording.
pull up here
Um,
to
all my phone was really weird today. I had to like get on Reddit to figure out what was going on because half the apps I was opening up were just not. They were just timing out. They were not opening, so I had to delete some
Zach
things. So if
Gallen.
you're an Android user out there, check out Reddit. You just had to delete like an Android web view, uninstall that app, and it's been fine. But anyway, yeah, I think that I saw the manager was like, "Oh yeah, he like strained his arm, but like it was from batting practice. Like he didn't do it while he was throwing." I was like, "Oh, that's weird to like go out of your way to point out, but like maybe that's okay."
The latest report isn't great. It's not bad. It's basically like we don't know, but it's probably not great. So
So
I double dipped in Gallon. Are you kidding me?
you took the double gallon challenge, and
I'm or and then okay, so I'll break it down for people in our home ESPN league. I went with Gallon Strasburg, so that's going great. Um, Paxton, who God forbid, Otani and Patrick Corbin are my starters. I have some others. Oh, Kluber. So basically, realistically, I could lose all my pitchers within the first month of the season on the IL. So that's great.
so say 300 people in. So we're like above this 40% in terms of per. I just want to go up here and change this.
Oh gosh, now JT, you just ruined my whole night. Now I'm just gonna be thinking about Zach.
I don't know
Zach
how many
Gallen,
pitchers
my boy.
are like attainably drafted, and so like 80 in terms of like the way we're doing this percentile thing. Like our
You
draft
highlighted
pool, it's
Justice as the last
interesting.
one too. You just gonna highlight Justice as the last one, not bring it up. Oh, look at
Yeah, I left off May. I'm being fair.
that. You're not being a bias. Okay.
I'm gonna say it. Dustin May
You
is
left
my
off
spirit
Edwin Diaz.
animal.
You left off Edwin Diaz. Wow. Tristan McKenzie too.
All he does is get you saves, but obviously his track record of recently has not been the greatest.
It's kind of just
But
1 year though. Like really, isn't it? Like because other than
yeah, but
that,
I think you could say the same thing for Suarez right off the top. I think he had a career year in those where he snuck in like with some NL MVP votes, what 2019. But I don't
yeah.
think he's a 40 home run guy. I think
You don't think Suarez is?
I don't know that wasn't that a big bouncy ball, and this year it's supposed to be a little bit more of a dead ball.
Yeah,
I
I guess, but
just
I kind of believe in Suarez. If nothing else, I think Suarez is going to give you home runs. Now you could easily convince me like the average, the on base is going to fluctuate, but I think he's just if nothing else, he's going to hit you bombs, and I think he's pretty safe for about we could talk like 38, but give or break a hit on the road versus home, 38 to 40. Yeah, I could easily see him getting there every year. He's even like kind of the sexy like lead the league in home run pick for a lot of people.
mhm.
I'm just saying, man. Yeah, K per 9. Edwin Diaz is a beast.
Caper 9.
K per walk, 5. 18 K per 9. I mean,
Decent.
I mean, like
But uh, I'm just realizing that like
he's kind of a
obviously
Bauer
there's
though. He's kind of a Bauer every other year. Yeah, like, whew. But still, like, I think it's pretty low on him. He has to be higher than that. I think he has to be.
when I need to re-download the stats when I do. I need to differentiate between starting pitchers and relief pitchers.
But I mean, like, this is how you draft it either way. Like, you're not. I mean, unless you
No, if
really get
I
to your strategy,
well, that's true because
because
I just have hitters.
that's what this is graded on,
Um,
man. Like, that's kind of what it is.
mhm. I mean, there's just so many more
Yeah,
hitters in terms of what we're looking at, which makes the pitchers more valuable.
yeah.
The
And
Willie
this is
Castro.
and this is taking Brad Miller. Come on, we're the list is dumb. Okay, we're taking like this is taking all the bias out of it. So like, there's no ADP affecting this. There's nothing like that. This is just straight numbers, percentages, which is good for people to see because this isn't where you don't go by like to reiterate this isn't like, oh, this guy's number one. I take this guy now because there's certain guys, like you said, like the ADP incorporates like I can wait on this guy or I can do this. But this is showing you like who is projected to fill out for you. So that's why like pitchers will come up and some of these hitters will drop down in your actual drafts.
Mm-hmm. Do you like this Wander Franco based on what, like a half of a season?
Yeah, yeah, at like
Is
18.
just like
Yeah, like 18 years old.
he's still like
Yeah,
basically like a utility. I mean, like, yeah, he's gonna get you if
ahead of
you're
the NL
thinking
Rookie of the
roto.
Year. Ahead of the NL Rookie of the Year. I'm just surprised Cronenworth's that low, but I guess Cronenworth doesn't do anything like really sexy.
What is the deal with Puig? It's so odd. Is there something going on there?
I don't know. I have
Like,
avoided him in drafts because for that reason alone. I know people will draft him. He gets drafted in every league I'm in because the upside's so high, but I just can't. What was it last year? He played with like Cleveland. He was like here, then he's not, and then he's. I just can't. Maybe a last round pick or like $1 in auction draft, but I can't justify anymore. I simply just can't do it. If somebody else wants to
mhm.
take a chance and gamble, I'm not going to knock it. But for
Right.
me, I have, even if he plays, like I'm saying, like even if he plays, he wasn't that great. And I need, if you told me he started, was like, been with the team for a month and was playing in spring training, it'd be one thing. But I just can't trust the guy anymore. And JT knows I had Puig for 4 years in our home league. Like I used all my keepers on Puig. I had that guy
Yep.
locked in. I love him, but I just, at this point in his career, I cannot trust him at this point.
Yeah, it's like, is he, I don't understand at least like how no team could justify. I don't, I don't know. I know he got Trevor Bauer's agent actually most recently I saw, and I just I, it was really weird last year. Like he had to deal with Atlanta, and then he got COVID, and then they completely just backed out of the deal. I was like,
Yeah.
give it a couple weeks. He should be fine. I would hope.
That's why it's
Just
outside of baseball thing. It has to be an outside of the baseball
that's
thing.
what I was thinking. I'm like,
Yeah.
is he just like I'm not gonna. Okay, no, I'm not gonna say it. I'm not a political person, and I don't want to go down that road.
Well,
So,
there's
anyways,
an issue with that in football too. There's a lineman who was a high draft pick, and he's been cut now, and he was cut again recently. And it's not, well, he wasn't a great football player, but like it's kind of like it's an upstairs thing. And I don't know if like it's developed or not, because like the guy is so talented on
mhm,
defense too, or probably not as much as he was, but he was so electric. It has to be. Who would not take a gamble on a guy like that? Or he's just looking for the right deal. Like you said, his agent, like he's got the same one that would held Kimbrel out till, halfway through the season a couple years
right,
ago. So maybe they're playing hardball and waiting for a right deal with the right amount of money. It's probably a little bit of both, probably a little A, a little B. But he has to understand he hasn't played in a while, and you're gonna have to, your price, the longer you sit out, has to come down a little bit. It's not gonna go up.
yeah. So Biggio, Gurriel Jr., they are right here back to back, and in terms of what they're bringing, obviously Biggio is a lot more of a OBP guy.
Look at his 80s down there. There you go.
Um, but I feel like Gurriel Jr., excuse me, might eventually be more versatile in terms of might get more at bats on the year. I mean, that team is kind of stacked. And
Yeah.
if you're just head to head, who would you rather have as a player on your fantasy team?
It it obviously depends on OBP, because if it's not an OBP league, Biggio is like absolutely like not even the same conversation. I take Gurriel because I think we talked about it before. Biggio just walks too much almost. He does. I need you to. A walk is fine in an OBP league, but when you walk too much, you're not filling anything else out. You might get some runs. I guess he might get some stolen bases, but he's not going to be. He's perfect in career stolen bases right now, but that's coming down. Like he's not going to be that guy. I don't even think he's going to be a great stolen base guy, because I don't think he's particularly fast, or at least baseball fast.
Mm-hmm.
He is, I guess I'll say this way, elite speed. He has speed, but not elite speed. So I'm not, we've talked about this on several podcasts, JT, but I'm not big on Toronto in general. I think a lot of their players could easily pitfall this year. And so I take Gurriel because I think Gurriel has a little bit more longer track record. And yeah, I just don't buy Kevin Biggio right now. Like at least where he's going. If you were to drop to like, what was he on here, like 140th or something like that, I would take
What
him
is
around there.
ADP?
On there he's 120th, but his ADP is like half of that. Yeah, you
Oh,
could
I have
talk
it
me into
only.
what.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
you could
hitters
talk me into
only.
120. No, that's what I'm saying. Like you could talk me to like the 120 category of a draft, but like a 60 or something like that. No.
Yeah, 12 team. That's fifth
Yeah,
round.
it's too, and
Fifth round.
those guys, those young guys for Toronto go really high, and unfortunately, I just don't. The three of them, the Bichette, Vlad, and him. I'm much more up on. I would draft Simeon and Gurriel probably. I don't want to say over all of them, but I'm definitely drafting Simeon number one over over those, because 45. Yeah, I just Bo Bichette kind of seems like a guy who could really collapse. Like just I have a bad feeling about Toronto. I have a really bad feeling about Toronto because it's all just like hype. They could do this. They could do this. They could do this. I'm like, they haven't. But like you're hoping they all
The
take that step. You're hoping like 5 guys take that step at one time. I'm like, that's probably not who's gonna fail. Like some of these are gonna probably fail. Like,
well, yeah, the whole team though. I mean, like their pitching staff. You're like, man,
yeah,
if they all could stay like healthy, or if two of these four, make the
yeah.
rotation and really stick, and then I think it was today, Kirby Yates, you're gonna be out for like a month or something. So yeah,
That whole team just makes me like even Simeon, like career year, like he's been really good, and like he's not really that guy. I don't think the only one I'm really confident in is Springer. Springer's just a beast, and he's always going to be a beast, or as long as age holds up and everything like that. Like
hmm
that's the guy. But after Springer, the next guy I'm confident is Simeon. Even after saying that, with
right.
all those Toronto guys, like Vlad, like how many years does he have to get drafted in the third round, or like the fifth round now, to where like, okay, he's got to do it. I'm like, well, at a certain point, he has to just do it. Like we can't keep drafting him like he's gonna do it. He has to like drop at some point. Randy Rosarina, that guy scares me too.
Is he legit? I don't know, man.
Again, I'm not taking him 58th projected ADP.
Right. And this, yeah, it's all relative. Yeah. You want him
Yeah,
on your fantasy team? Yeah. You want him for
but
your 5th round pick?
like
No.
we're talking
Well,
around Bregman and Aaron Judge and Stan. No, I'm not. He's not in that category. You got to do more than however many at bats he had in the regular season. I mean, playoffs are fine, but playoffs lie to you every year. Remember when David Freese was like a monster in the playoffs? What did he do after that? Like I'm just saying, like playoffs
hey,
lie to you. Small sample size.
yeah, too bad we don't have a clutch category, or he would have been up there.
Don't. This is analytics. Do not talk about clutch momentum. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear anything about that.
Yeah, just really getting a groove. You got a really strong eye at the plate. Baseball is tricky, though. I
It
mean,
is. It is. But that's just like that's more laws of probability at some point than it just like streaky. Can't explain it.
right. I'll flip it back over to pitchers, and then I guess we'll wrap this up. I was just kind of looking for narratives and names that stand out. Um, I'll give it to Hyunjin Ryu. I just have never seen it. I don't know. I've never really pursued drafting him, but I know that he tends to be your boy more often than not. And as a career, he's impressed me because
Yeah.
I didn't think it would translate, but he's after his early injuries in his career, he's stayed fairly consistent these last few years, and now with Toronto, um, good for him is what I'll say.
Yeah. I'm wishy washy on Ryu. I loved him in for the Dodgers. His biggest issue was health. He's a beast when he played. The issue I had with that is going to that team, that ballpark, that division. He played well last year, but that's again a small sample size. It makes me very nervous. With that said, I did draft him in one of the leagues already this year. I'm not opposed to drafting him, but it has to be at the right cost and the right. I am not taking him where he's projected to go. If he falls, I will take Ryu because again, he has the potential to be a beast and even honestly to be in the Cy Young conversation. But I'm nervous. Like playing in that division is definitely not playing in the NL West when he was pitching in the NL West. There's a big difference. And in that
Yeah.
ballpark versus the Dodgers ballpark, it makes me very
hmm
nervous.
Oh yeah. I don't know. I feel like I might have heard it on a podcast I listened to. I'm looking at Herman Marquez. I wonder if he's tradable this year or something. I thought I heard something about like, wow, man, wouldn't it be great if Marquez went to, and then they were naming off a couple teams. It's like um probably the closest thing to like an Ubaldo where you feel like he could actually fend for himself outside of cores.
Yeah.
Great stuff and everything. And just like he's fairly high up on this pitching list. I mean, we're only
Yeah. I mean, no, you again,
23, 20,
yeah.
yeah, pitchers in. It's just kind of like, oh,
Sonny, but ahead of Gallen, Sonny Gray, Freed, like these are
right,
Strasburg, like these are not nobody's here. These guys are all definitely getting drafted. So it's just like,
right. Gossman right there.
yeah, like
Do you
Marquez has a lot of
believe?
talent. Yeah. Where does Lamette, did you Where does he fall?
He was down. He fell. If I remember earlier seeing his name.
Ooh, okay. Well, that's not because that's pitcher, so it's not as many as 260.
But yeah, you would say he's the 50th pitcher
Okay, okay.
out of what we're doing here in terms of the stats he's
That is
providing to you.
that is a fall. Yeah, that is a fall. Interesting.
I mean, single digit ADP down here. I just saw 105 Luzardo, but
He's got to be the
not too
58er,
common.
but like relief pitcher. But yeah,
RP, yeah, but in terms of a starting pitcher
yeah, he's
that
definitely down
high,
there.
he's
He's the fall. He's fallen the most. Interesting.
well,
Yeah,
two pitch guy, right? I mean,
yeah.
I think he's working on a third, but I think everyone's working on a third. It's just like you gotta execute. You gotta make it stick. I
Yeah.
mean, surprising kind of thing. McCullers down here this far. I'm
Paddock there
just
too.
wondering. Look, Paddock found analytics. It struck him 2020. He was probably just on his phone
My
and was
gosh.
like, "What
Don't get
are
me started.
these?"
Don't get me started.
I
What is
swear,
this?
wasn't it the thing where he just like someone he was like, "Oh, who's Bill James?" And
Yeah.
he
Well,
probably
it was
was so bored out of his mind. He eventually watched Moneyball and was like, "Oh,
who was it? 2 years ago, it was Mitch Keller for the Pirates. He was at an opposing ballpark and they showed FIP on the board and he goes, "What is that?" And I'm like, how can a major league pitcher? It's important enough to show on the jumbotron, and he didn't know what it was. And that's not a Mitch
hey,
Keller dig. That is a Pittsburgh Pirates
that's a
dig. Like,
Pittsburgh." Yeah, it's like
how do you,
Keller's a
as an
young buck.
organization, not educate these people on what these major categories are?
Just leading lambs to slaughter. I don't
Like
know.
how, and he talked about that in an interview, and I was like, Pittsburgh, what were you doing? And they cleaned house. It's not the same people that were there back then, but like, yeah. So
So,
that it kind of
yeah.
surprised me. But if there was another story like that, I can see it happening. But the Dodgers, but the
Part of me just
Pirates, come on.
questions just people in general. Like, aren't you curious about your craft? Like, don't don't you get asked some questions that maybe you don't fully understand regarding this, or
Yeah,
do reporters
and do like
str-
like they like other people are like Rapsodo. Does he's like, what is Rapsodo? Like all these other things. Like, what is he like? Does he like not
right?
talk about it? Like they're all. He's like going to the All-Star game and like, yeah, I did this. And he's like, and just like shaking his head, like pretending like he knows what's happening.
And your
Like,
curveball's got a lot of RPMs
yeah,
on it, and
yeah.
like
He's like,
that's on the car. What are you talking
yeah,
about?
yeah. Like,
My
does he just shake his
fastball
head for
goes
years?
straight. My curveball does the loopy thing, and
Yeah. He puts a one down
gravity.
or a two. He puts a one or a two. Like,
I don't know.
like I just we're not making fun of Paddock. It's more the organization. And again, it was the Pirates versus or Padres versus the Pirates, and so that's what confuses me with that one. Like,
Yeah.
but oh well. Well, this is a cool list, JT. Thanks for sharing it.
Oh, yeah. Um, leave it right here. I just saw Heaney and Musgrove kind of up here
Yeah.
rubbing elbows. Heaney's looked really good this preseason. And Musgrove is always that. Oh, this is his year, and can he put it all together? And I do have a soft spot for both of those.
You do.
Might
You like
lean to, yeah. I mean, essentially, when you get far enough in the draft years, you're going with your guys, and I think more often than not, I just kind of like I want to see certain players on the cusp, break out and something to root for and have fun with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, sweet.
anywho, that was fun. So like I said, definitely strategize. Be fully aware of the categories in your league and try to exploit it. Reach out there. Tons of podcasts to listen to. The one that comes to mind is ITL. Every single year they do a podcast and they compare and contrast the websites. I think primarily CBS, ESPN, and Yahoo, and see where players, in terms of like the rankings, are higher and lower, where you can pretty much automatically find value if you're playing in like a home league. And some people just roll in off of doing a couple mock drafts and call it good, so just something to thinking about and research. I don't know, I just always have fun with it, so
Yeah.
it's good just to converse, and I'm just ready for final draft and baseball start in
Do it.
less than 2 weeks. So,
Then we could trash talk about our actual teams.
oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, it's that time of year where I'm just like, man, I want to pick up that player, but that means I need to drop someone
Yeah, and you
who I
don't know yet.
liked in my
Yeah, you don't know
draft, and
yet.
am I pulling the trigger too soon? But
Yeah,
it's always that him and or oh man, I really wish I could trade for stolen bases, but am I going to get full value?
yeah, yeah.
So, all right. Until next time, he is Sean. You can find him on Twitter at Sean_Beatty. I am JT. You can find me on Twitter at JT_the Ginger. I think coming up next, we've already talked about the trades that have gone down in WERF. I think I want to just get like a big group chat. I don't know if we'll record it or not, but like something just to get everyone on and hang out again, and maybe have like a game on in the background that's of interest to most people, and kind of form that community with WERF.
Oh
So that'd
yeah,
be
because
pretty sweet,
okay, because we're coming up to real games here. Okay, yeah, that's
right?
right.
So nothing really set in stone on the horizon, but we're still recording every Monday night, so I'll have to try to think of some more stuff to talk about. But once baseball starts, we'll just be
It's
rolling
baseball.
with it.
Yeah, it's
So
baseball. We talk forever.
yeah. All right. Until
All right.
next time, take care.